Rain hammered Detroit like it was trying to crush the city flat. The sky hung low and bruised, swollen with storm clouds that refused to move on. In a cramped, aging apartment on the third floor of a building that had stopped caring about itself long before she moved in, Lucy Nelson sat hunched on the edge of her sagging couch. The glow from a cheap lamp painted her skin in tired amber, catching the exhaustion in her eyes more brutally than she wished it would. The air inside was thick, humid from the leaking window and faintly sweet with the lingering scent of baby powder. The radiator clanged like a dying animal. And across the room, in a second-hand crib patched with zip ties, Ethan, her 18-month-old son, stirred in his sleep. Lucy watched his tiny chest rise and fall, watched the way his curls stuck damply to his forehead, watched him with the same ache she'd felt every night for months, an ache made of love and guilt and a fear she'd learned to swallow like bad medicine. She pulled the empty formula tin closer, turned it in her hands, tapped the bottom as if a miracle might fall out. Nothing. Her throat tightened. A year ago, Lucy had been the woman with a lab coat and a notebook full of potential top of her class in biochemistry, a rising researcher at a scrappy diagnostics startup. Now the company was gone, dissolved overnight under bankruptcy filings. The daycare she relied on closed 2 weeks later. And just like that, everything in her life that had felt stable crumbled, leaving her balancing survival on the thinnest possible thread. Tonight, that thread felt like it was snapping. Ethan whimpered in his sleep, hungry. His bottle tonight had been more water than formula. The guilt twisted deep and sharp. Lucy's phone lay face down on the coffee table. She stared at it, as if willing it to solve her problems. She hated asking for help, hated the feeling of sinking into someone else's hands. But Ethan was hungry, and pride didn't fill bottles. Her thumb hovered over a familiar name, James, her older brother, her last emergency contact, her last fallback. He'd helped before reluctantly, but he had. And tonight, she didn't have the luxury of enduring another lecture from him about getting it together or making better choices. She didn't even have time to think. Her hands trembled as she typed, "James, I'm sorry. Ethan's almost out of formula. Can you spot me $50? I'll pay you back Friday. I promise." She hit send before she could talk herself out of it, before she could reopen the wound of asking. She didn't double-check the number. The second the message left her, screen shame washed over her, hot, suffocating. She pressed the heels of her palms into her eyes, willing herself not to cry. Not again. Not tonight. The storm outside rattled the warped window, as if mocking her. 5 minutes crawled by. Then her phone buzzed. Lucy snatched it up, relief rushing too fast, too hopeful. The message punched her in the stomach. "I think you meant to send this to someone else." Her breath stopped. Her heart tripped. Oh God, no, 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 no. She'd typed the wrong number. Panic surged, hot and dizzying. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. "I'm so sorry. Wrong number. Please ignore that. I'm really sorry." She sent it and dropped the phone onto the couch like it burned. She dragged a thin blanket around her shoulders, trying to make herself smaller, trying to hide from her own humiliation. Her eyes stung with tears she refused to let fall. One mistake. Just one small, stupid mistake. She didn't have room for mistakes. But the world didn't care about her limits. She closed her eyes, praying the stranger would simply delete the message and forget she existed. She'd pick herself up tomorrow. She always did. Across the crib, Ethan sighed in his sleep, soft and fragile. Lucy leaned her head back against the couch and whispered into the dimness, "I'm trying, baby. I'm trying." She didn't notice her phone buzzing again. 300 miles away, in a glass-walled penthouse above Chicago's glittering skyline. The city stretched beneath him like a living circuit board, lights blinking, traffic threading the grid. The lake a black mirror, reflecting the storm rolling in from the west. Owen Walker, CEO of Biotech Solutions, stood before massive floor-to-ceiling windows, a glass of untouched whiskey in his hand. He looked like a man carved out of precision, sharp suit, sharper jawline, eyes, too tired to belong to someone only 40. His phone buzzed. He almost ignored it. No one had this number except family and 3 executives who would only text in emergencies. But he checked anyway. A message from an unknown Detroit number. He frowned, opened it. James, I'm sorry. Ethan's almost out of formula. Can you spot me $50? I'll pay you back Friday. I promise. His brows drew together. A mother. A baby. Raw desperation bleeding between the lines. Without warning, something inside him flinched like a muscle that hadn't been used in years, suddenly spasming back to life. He read the message again, slower this time, and the memories he kept buried deepest clawed their way back up. Emily, his little sister, 19 years old, dying because no one could afford the treatment she needed. He swallowed hard. He had built Biotech Solutions to stop stories like hers, to make sure no family had to watch someone die because they were poor. But here it was again, in a stranger's accidental plea. His thumb hovered. Instinct told him to delete the message to stay within the clean, calculated lines he'd drawn around his life. Instead, he typed, "Is your baby going to be okay?" He stared at the text for several long seconds, then hit send. A foreign vulnerability settled into his chest, back in Detroit. When Lucy saw the reply, her lungs forgot how to work. Is your baby going to be okay? Not a lecture, not an insult, not a scam. A question. Simple. Human. She clutched the phone, thumbs trembling. We'll manage. Sorry again for the mistake. She hesitated, then set the phone aside. The conversation was over. It needed to be. But the reply came almost instantly. I can help. No pressure. No strings. Lucy scoffed under her breath. She didn't believe in no strings. Not from strangers. Not from men. Not from anyone. Thanks, but I don't take money from strangers. His response was immediate. Then I'm Owen. Not a stranger. Lucy blinked. A name shouldn't feel intimate. But somehow it did. Her heartbeat kicked up a mix of caution and something softer she didn't dare acknowledge. She didn't reply. She couldn't. Instead, she fed Ethan the last watered-down formula, left humming softly to keep him calm. She rocked him until his eyes fluttered shut, the weight of him sinking into her chest like a promise. When she laid him in the crib, her phone buzzed again. A Venmo request window was open. No message, just a space where he'd typed his name, Owen Walker. Her pulse thudded. What was she doing? Why was she even hesitating? Ethan would need food in the morning. She had nothing left to sell. No family to call. No time. Her pride was a luxury she couldn't afford. With a breath that felt like surrender, she typed her handle and hit send. Her stomach twisted as she waited. She expected silence, or regret, or nothing at all. Instead, $1,000 received from Owen Walker. Lucy froze. The world tilted. What? She whispered. She refreshed the screen twice. Still $1,000. Her throat closed. Tears burned hot instantly. But these weren't the helpless ones she hated. This felt different. Confusing. Terrifying. She typed automatically. This is too much. I only needed $50. His reply came with a kind of calm certainty that made her chest ache. Then it's more than enough. Take care of your boy. No repayment. No catch. Lucy pressed a hand to her mouth. tears slipping through her fingers before she could stop them. She hadn't cried like this in months. Not from sadness this time, from the shock of unexpected kindness. "Why?" she whispered to no one, voice breaking. "Why would you help me?" There was no answer. Only the soft breath of her sleeping son and the distant echo of rain against the glass as she wondered, who is this man, and why does he care? Detroit woke gray and disheartened, as if the sky hadn't yet decided whether to give up or keep fighting. Lucy Nelson stood over the kitchen counter, staring at the unopened can of formula she'd bought that morning. Real formula. Not watered down, not scraped from the bottom. Her hands rested on the metal lid as though touching something foreign. Behind her, Ethan babbled from his high chair, smearing mashed banana across his tray with delighted abandon. He seemed lighter today, his eyes brighter, his laugh easier. Maybe babies could feel relief too. Lucy wished she could. She twisted the can open, inhaling the familiar powdery scent. It hit her harder than she expected. She blinked fast and forced herself to breathe. She should feel grateful. She did feel grateful. But gratitude came with something else. Something heavy and complicated and unsettling. $1,000. From a stranger. No, not a stranger. A man with a name now. Owen. Her phone buzzed on the counter, lighting up with a new message from him. "Did you manage to get formula today?" She hesitated before typing back. She had promised herself not to respond, not to open the door any wider than it already was. And yet, yes. Thank you. He's eating better already. She added a period, deleted. It added it again, then finally hit send before she could overthink. A reply came almost immediately. "Good. That's all that matters." Lucy stared at the words until they blurred. Simple. Solid. Without the weight of expectation. She could feel the edge of something dangerous forming a softness toward a man she didn't know. A man she shouldn't trust. She pushed her phone away, telling herself she needed space. Perspective. Control. But her thoughts clung to him anyway. Across state lines in a tower of glass and silence. Owen Walker leaned back in his office chair, scrolling through research briefs he had no mental room for. Chicago shimmered beneath the windows, busy, polished, confident. The opposite of everything he felt today. He checked his phone again. Reread Lucy's message. He's eating better already. He exhaled slowly, tension he hadn't realized he carried easing from his shoulders. Good. The kid was okay. That was the point. That was all he wanted. Wasn't it? He closed his eyes, pressing fingers to his temples, as the ghost of memory flickered the sound of Emily coughing, the hospital insisting on upfront payment. They didn't have the helplessness that had carved him hollow. Maybe helping someone else was a way to silence that old festering guilt. But somehow this felt different. Lucy felt different. He shook the thought off. Dangerous territory. Still, he typed, "Let me know if you ever need help finding childcare. I have contacts in Detroit through one of our outreach programs. Could connect you." He hovered before sending. It felt too forward, too intrusive. But it was true. Biotech had partnered with several community organizations in Detroit. He wasn't offering charity, just possibilities. He hit send. For a long moment, nothing came back. Then, "I appreciate it, but I can't depend on anyone. Not anymore." "Thank you, though." He read the message twice. A strange mix of respect and concern settled in his chest. There was a story in her words, one she wasn't telling. Detroit. Later that night, after tucking Ethan into his crib, Lucy sat on the couch with an empty mug cupped in her hands. Her apartment hummed with refrigerator noise and quiet. Outside, a siren wailed across Corktown, a reminder that the world didn't pause just because her life had. She opened her phone not to text Owen, but to delete the conversation, to sever this fragile thread before it knotted into something she didn't have the strength to untangle. But her thumb hovered. She scrolled up through his messages. Simple, direct, kind. She shouldn't keep them. She shouldn't keep any of this. But she didn't delete them either. Instead, she clicked his name half to confirm he was real. Owen Walker. She ran a quick search, just one, a small one, because she needed to know who she was dealing with. What she found made her grip tighten on the phone. Photos of him in sharp suits stepping out of black cars. Interviews where he rarely smiled. Articles calling him ruthless, driven a visionary who trusts no one. And then a small obituary, years old. Emily Walker, 19. Lucy's chest constricted. She stopped searching. This man had his own ghosts, and she had no right to be curious. She closed the browser, heart unsteady. The phone buzzed in her hand. Owen again. If you ever want to restart your work in biochemistry, tell me. Detroit has labs and clinics we sometimes partner with. I could recommend you, only if you want. No pressure. Lucy's breath caught. A job? No, he wasn't offering one. He wasn't crossing that line, just opening a window she hadn't allowed herself to imagine in a long time. Still, it scared her. Why are you doing this? She typed before she could stop herself. Not accusatory, just tired and honest. She sent it. Several minutes passed. Then 3 dots appeared. Paused. Disappeared. Reappeared. When the message finally came, it was one sentence. Because someone should have helped my family when no one did. Lucy stared at the words. A truth revealed. A wound shared. Not pity. Not savior complex. Just a man who knew what helplessness felt like. Her throat tightened. She didn't respond. Couldn't. She set her phone down and pressed her palms to her eyes, trying to breathe through the sudden rush of emotion. She was grateful. She was scared. She was drawn to him in a way she didn't understand. And that was the most terrifying part. Chicago, the next morning. Owen hadn't slept. His eyes felt raw. Coffee did nothing. He'd replayed her last message too many times. Why are you doing this? She deserved an answer that didn't hide behind formality or carefully curated distance. But vulnerability wasn't something he did well anymore. He paced his office, trying to shake the feeling gnawing at him. That maybe he'd stepped too close. That maybe she'd pull away. That maybe he cared more than he should. His assistant buzzed in about a meeting, but his mind was elsewhere. Finally, he typed another message, quieter this time. Just take care of your son, Lucy. That's all I want. He didn't say it, but he thought it. Because no one could save Emily. And I can't watch another child struggle if I can help it. Detroit afternoon. Lucy saw the message during Ethan's nap. She read it twice, then set the phone down gently. Something about Owen's words lodged beneath her ribs, a mixture of warmth and unfamiliar ache. She knew she couldn't let this become something it wasn't. She couldn't afford to misinterpret kindness as connection. Not again. Not after Ethan's father, who had walked out before their son ever took his first breath. But Owen felt different. Not safe exactly. No, nothing about this was safe. But honest, steady, human. She sighed and leaned forward, resting her head in her hands. She needed to make a choice. Cut this off cleanly. Or acknowledge that for the first time in a long time someone saw her without judgment. Neither option felt simple. Just then, Ethan cried from the crib. She rose, lifting him gently into her arms. His small fingers curled around her necklace. His weight settled against her chest, grounding her in what mattered most. As she rocked him, her thoughts whispered, I can't let anyone hurt us again. But what if he's not here to hurt us? What if this is the door I'm supposed to walk through? She pressed her lips to Ethan's forehead. I'm not ready, she whispered into his hair. Not for anything, not even hope. But the truth, she didn't say the truth. She felt deep in her bones. She wanted to trust him. And that terrified her more than anything. Detroit's cold had settled in for good, the kind that seeped beneath coats and into bones. Lucy pulled her cardigan tight as she stepped out of the corner store with Ethan balanced on one hip and a plastic bag of groceries in the other. It wasn't much eggs bread, the cheapest fruit she could find, but it felt heavier than it should. Her phone vibrated in her pocket, a soft buzz she tried to ignore. She didn't need further complications today. She already had plenty, a daycare that remained closed indefinitely, a landlord texting about late rent, and a half-finished job application that stared at her every night like a silent accusation. But the buzzing didn't stop. When she finally checked it, her breath snagged. Owen. She hadn't heard from him in 3 days, not since the exchange that left her reeling, unsure whether to build a wall or let a door stay open. His message was short. There's something you should see. Are you free to talk? Her pulse stuttered. She shouldn't respond. Distance was safer. Boundaries were safer. And yet, she texted back, Ethan just went down for a nap. I have a few minutes. Her screen lit up with an incoming call. For a heartbeat, Lucy froze. Hearing his voice felt intimate. Too intimate. But she answered anyway, mostly because her curiosity had a way of winning battles she didn't approve of. Lucy. His voice was low, careful, like he wasn't sure how close he was allowed to stand. Hi. She shifted Ethan on her hip, though he had already fallen asleep against her shoulder. Everything okay? There was a pause, soft but weighted. I hope so, he said, but I want to run something by you. All right. I spoke with one of our partner clinics in Detroit today. Another pause, as if choosing his words with precision. They need someone with your skill set. It's temporary but paid. Real work, not charity. Lucy stopped walking. The street hummed with traffic, but the world went still around her. A job, she whispered. Yes. His tone didn't hold pride. It held truth. An actual role. They're reviewing candidates, and when I mentioned your background, only your background, they asked for your resume. Lucy's mind spun. A job. A real one. Something she hadn't dared to hope for. But the warmth blooming in her chest was quickly smothered by fear. You didn't... She swallowed. You didn't tell them about my situation, about the money you sent. I don't talk about private things, he said quietly. Especially not yours. Her breath loosened. She believed him. That was the dangerous part, how effortlessly she believed him. Owen continued, his voice softer now. I didn't want to pressure you. You can say no. But I wanted you to know that a door exists, and that you deserve to walk through it if you want to. Lucy closed her eyes. The cold wind brushed her cheeks, biting, but she hardly felt it. I don't know, she murmured. It sounds too good. It's not charity, he repeated gently. You earned their interest. There was another silence, one she felt rather than heard. Then, and Lucy, if they don't hire you, I will, but only if you want that. Her heart jolted. She pressed a palm to her forehead, trying to steady the swirl of emotion. Fear, relief, disbelief, something softer she refused to name. Owen, why are you doing this for me? Her voice cracked despite her attempt to hold it together. A breath from his end, quiet but heavy. Because I can, he said. Because someone should have done it for my sister. And because... He stopped. Lucy waited. Instead of finishing, he exhaled. Because you remind me what it feels like to care about something that actually matters. Her fingers tightened around the grocery bag. She didn't know how to answer that. Maybe there was no right answer. Send me your resume, he said gently. When you're ready. No rush. Okay, she whispered. And Lucy, yes. Let me help without you thinking you owe me anything. Her chest tightened. She didn't reply. She couldn't. But he didn't push. Take care of Ethan, he said softly. Talk soon. The call ended and Lucy stood on the sidewalk with snow beginning to drift around her. Ethan heavy and warm against her, the phone warm in her hand. A job. A real possibility. A door she hadn't knocked on. A door she was afraid to walk through. A door she wanted anyway. For the first time in months, she let a sliver of hope slip in. Chicago midnight. Owen sat in his penthouse office, the city stretching beneath him in rippling silver. He wasn't working. The tablet in front of him displayed the same unread chart he'd stared at for the last hour. Instead, he replayed the sound of Lucy's voice, soft but weighted with exhaustion and something more tender. He didn't know why it hit him the way it did. He didn't know why he kept reaching for his phone, only to stop himself. This wasn't who he was. He didn't let people close. He didn't blur lines. He didn't involve himself in strangers' lives. But Lucy didn't feel like a stranger anymore. He tilted his head back, rubbing his temple. This was dangerous. He should keep his distance. He should draw boundaries. He should let her take the job and quietly disappear from the edges of her life. But he didn't want to disappear. He wanted no. He wouldn't finish the thought. Instead, he whispered into the dimness, "Careful, Owen." Detroit. 2 days later, Lucy sat at her kitchen table. Ethan playing at her feet with a wooden train missing one wheel. Her laptop glowed faintly. Her resume file sat open on the screen. She stared at it for over an hour. She hadn't edited it in a year. Since before the company folded. Since before everything changed. Her degrees looked like they belonged to someone else. Her accomplishments felt like memories instead of truths. She pressed trembling fingers to the keyboard. She thought of Owen's voice when he said, "You deserve to walk through the door." She thought of Ethan's laugh that morning, bright and unhindered. She thought of her own reflection, tired but still standing. Slowly she began typing, updating, owning her story again, reclaiming the parts she'd lost. At one point she paused, overcome by emotion she couldn't name. She whispered, "It's just a resume. Get it together." But it wasn't just anything. It was the first step she'd taken toward herself in a long time. When she finished, she sat back exhaling. The cursor blinked expectant. Then before she let fear talk her out of it, she attached the file to a message. Here it is. Lucy. She hit send. Her whole body trembled with the release. 3 minutes later, her phone buzzed. Got it. And Lucy, I'm proud of you. She pressed the phone to her chest, closed her eyes, let herself feel the warmth. Nobody had said those words to her in years. Nobody had meant them the way he did. Chicago. The turning point. Owen stared at Lucy's resume longer than necessary, not because he doubted her qualifications, but because seeing her professional history laid out so clearly made something inside him shift. This wasn't a vulnerable woman asking for help. This was a brilliant mind, forced into a corner by life, not by lack of ability. And he hated how common that story was. He forwarded her resume to the Detroit clinic with a message, highly recommended. Interview her immediately. She's exceptional. Then he typed to her, expect a call soon. And whether it's them or us, you're going to get back on your feet. I'll make sure of it. He added the last sentence without thinking. regretted it instantly, almost deleted it. But he didn't, because it was the truth, because some promises didn't feel optional. Detroit. That night, Lucy read the message 3 times, the last line making her breath hitch. I'll make sure of it. Dangerous, beautiful, unsettling. She set the phone down and paced, energy buzzing through her like a storm. Not fear, but anticipation. A life she thought was gone tugging at her sleeve. Ethan toddled toward her, lifting his arms. She scooped him up, burying her face in his curls. Things might change, baby, she whispered. I don't know how yet, but something's shifting. He giggled, unaware of the gravity. Lucy closed her eyes, inhaling his warmth. For the first time in a long time, she let herself whisper the truth. I want this, and I'm scared. But the fear didn't win. Not tonight. Because sometimes the smallest text message could open a door to a future she hadn't dared to imagine. The call from the Detroit clinic came on a Thursday morning, just as Lucy was wiping mashed blueberries off Ethan's cheeks. She almost didn't answer, her hands sticky, her hair a mess, her heart bracing for disappointment she couldn't afford. But when she picked up and heard the calm voice on the other end, we received your resume and would like to schedule an interview. Her legs nearly gave out. After the call ended, she just stood there, dazed, holding the phone tight enough to leave marks on her skin. She didn't scream. She didn't run around the apartment in celebration. She simply closed her eyes and let a single tear slip down. This wasn't victory. Not yet. But it was possibility. And possibility had been missing from her life for far too long. Ethan babbled beside her, reaching clumsily for her necklace. She scooped him up, kissing his warm cheek. We're trying, she whispered. And maybe it's finally doing something. Her phone buzzed. She didn't need to look to know who it was. Did they call? Her heart thudded. She typed back, yes. Interview tomorrow morning. A pause then. Good. You deserve it. You'll be brilliant. Lucy pressed the phone to her chest for a moment before setting it down. She didn't respond, though gratitude surged like a tide inside her. Instead, she moved through the day with a quiet determination, cleaning, preparing, smoothing her nerves into something almost confident. She picked her outfit carefully, a pressed blouse and dark slacks she'd ironed 3 times. She braided her hair neatly, pinned it back, put on minimal makeup, the kind that said, I respect myself, even when the world doesn't always agree. And underneath it all, a fear whispered, don't mess this up. This time you've got someone rooting for you. That makes failure hurt more. The interview. The clinic's building was modest aged brick, a flickering neon sign, a parking lot riddled with potholes. Nothing glamorous, nothing polished. But to Lucy, it looked like a door. Inside the waiting room was busy with patients, kids coughing, a tired father filling out forms, a woman pacing with a bag of prescriptions. It felt real, needed, messy in a way that reminded her why she had once fallen in love with biochemistry, to help people who didn't have safety nets. When the interviewer, Dr. Melissa Clark, greeted her, Lucy straightened her shoulders. The interview began gently, questions about her experience, her old company, her skill set. Lucy answered honestly, though shame flickered when she explained why she'd had an employment gap. She expected judgment, but Dr. Clark only nodded. Life happens. What matters is how you move next. For a moment, Lucy almost cried again. Instead, she breathed. But halfway through the interview, a new question landed. We received your resume through a referral from Biotech Solutions. Are you connected to them? Lucy froze. Her pulse spiked. She felt every wall inside her slam upward. No, she said too quickly. I mean, I know someone who passed my resume along, but I'm not. There's nothing formal. Dr. Clark studied her carefully, not suspicious, but curious. Biotech doesn't usually take interest in individual applicants outside their organization. You should know it caught our attention. Lucy forced a tight smile. I didn't ask him to. I didn't even expect him to. He just believed I should try. She couldn't bring herself to say his name out loud. It felt too intimate, too vulnerable. Dr. Clark didn't push further. The interview ended with a soft handshake and a promise of a decision soon. When Lucy stepped out into the parking lot, the cold air hit her lungs like ice. She should have felt proud, relieved, hopeful. Instead, she felt unsettled. Was she getting this opportunity because of her talent or because of Owen? The question scraped at her. She didn't want to owe a man anything ever again. Chicago Owen's office. Owen waited longer than he should have before texting her. He told himself he didn't want to pressure her. He told himself he was respecting her space. But the truth was simpler. He cared, more than he meant to. When her message finally came hours later, interview went well. I think, but I'm not sure how to feel about it. Owen frowned at the screen, sensing the tension beneath her words. What's wrong? Her reply took longer this time. They asked why biotech referred me. It made everything feel not mine, like it wasn't something I earned. He exhaled, leaning back in his chair. He understood that better than she realized. Lucy, doors open for all kinds of reasons, but what you do inside them, that's yours. Completely. He hesitated before adding, I didn't help you because you needed saving. I helped because the world already failed you once, and you deserved someone in your corner. Just once. A long pause followed. Then I don't know how to trust that, but I'm trying. Owen smiled softly at the screen. That was enough. Detroit. That evening, Lucy paced her small living room after Ethan fell asleep. The anxiety she'd held back all day now swelled restless and sharp. She wanted to believe Owen. She wanted to trust that this job, if she got it, was something she'd earned. But deep inside, a scarred part of her whispered, people don't help without wanting something. Not in this world. Not for women like you. She caught her reflection in the dark window. Tired eyes, messy hair. A woman who used to be brilliant, but had lost her footing. Why would a CEO, a billionaire, a man who could have anything bother with her problems? She slumped onto the couch, burying her face in her hands. She didn't want to need him. She didn't want to feel drawn to him. She didn't want to fall into anything she couldn't climb out of. She whispered to the empty room, I'm scared, and I don't know how to stop being scared. Her phone buzzed again. Owen. She hesitated, heart thudding. Can I call you? She stared at the message. Her pulse quickened. Her fingers trembled. Finally, she typed, Okay. The call. His voice came through warm, almost too steady. Lucy. She closed her eyes. I don't know how to feel right now, she admitted. Everything's happening so fast. The interview, the referral, the job possibility. I feel like the ground is moving. A good kind of moving I don't know yet. Silence stretched, gentle, not heavy. Lucy, he said quietly, you don't owe me anything. Not your gratitude. Not your trust. Not even this call. Her chest ached. It doesn't feel that simple. It can be, he murmured. Let me believe in you. That's all. She swallowed the words, catching on emotion she tried to swallow. How can you be so sure about a person you barely know? He let out a slow, honest breath. Because when you talk about Ethan, your entire voice changes. Because you asked for help only when you had no choice. Because you're fighting, really fighting, and most people stop trying long before they get to that point. Her eyes burned. He wasn't offering flattery. He wasn't manipulating her. He was telling the truth the way she needed to hear it. Slowly, she whispered, "I don't know how to let someone believe in me." "You don't have to know," he replied. "You just have to let it happen." Her breath hitched. "Why does it feel so easy with you?" she asked, before she could stop herself. A pause, long and unsteady. When he answered, his voice was softer, lower. "Because it feels easy with you too." The words hung suspended between them, dangerous, beautiful, shifting the ground beneath her feet. Lucy pressed a hand to her heart, trying to steady its racing. "Owen," she whispered, unsure if it was a warning or a plea. "I know," he murmured. "Me too." Neither of them spoke for a moment. Then Owen's tone changed, slightly more grounded. "Whatever happens tomorrow, whether they offer you the job or not, I want you to know something." "What?" she asked, voice barely audible. "You're not alone in this," he said. "And you haven't been since the night you sent that message to the wrong number." Her chest tightened painfully. She whispered, "Maybe it wasn't the wrong number after all." Another silence, the kind that felt like a held breath. "Lucy," he said huskily, "don't say something I won't be able to forget." She closed her eyes. "Good night, Owen." His voice dropped to a whisper. "Good night, Lucy." She ended the call. But she didn't sleep for a long time because something was shifting undeniably, irrevocably, and for the first time in years, she wasn't trying to run from it. The job offer arrived the next morning. Lucy hadn't even finished pouring cereal into Ethan's bowl when her phone rang. Her heart stumbled as she wiped her hands on a dish towel and answered. "Lucy Nelson." "Yes, this is she. This is Dr. Clark. We'd like to formally offer you the lab assistant position. If you're interested." Lucy leaned against the counter, breath caught between disbelief and relief. I am," she said. "I really am." "Good. We'll email everything within the hour. Welcome to the team." When the call ended, she didn't shout, didn't jump. She stood very still and let the news settle inside her like warmth spreading through cold limbs. A job, a real one, with a future that didn't disappear overnight. She picked up Ethan, hugging him so tightly. He wriggled in protest. "We did it," she whispered into his curls. "We're stepping forward." But as soon as the high faded, another thought crept in. Would she have gotten the job without Owen's help? And that was the wound she didn't know how to heal. Still, she typed the message she knew she owed him. "I got the job." The reply came faster than she expected. "Lucy, I'm proud of you. Really." She stared at the words, her chest tightening with something unspoken. She wanted to respond something sincere, something vulnerable. But before she could, Ethan knocked over his bowl, and she rushed to clean up the mess. Life didn't pause for emotions, no matter how big. The first week. The clinic smelled like disinfectant and old floors, but Lucy found comfort in the familiar patterns of lab work. Pipettes, sample trays, barcode scanners, the gentle hum of equipment coming to life. Her hands remembered more than she expected. Her focus sharpened in ways she hadn't felt in years. She belonged here. Maybe not fully, not yet. But the work felt like muscle memory she'd lost and was now reclaiming. And for the first time in months, she walked home with tired feet and a full heart, not weighed down by guilt or fear, but by purpose. That alone felt like a miracle. Yet something else followed her like a shadow. People whispered, quietly, but she heard them. "That's the girl biotech recommended. Did you see who signed her referral?" Why would someone like Owen Walker know someone like her? Lucy kept her head down. But it stung, more than she wanted to admit. And every evening when she put Ethan to sleep and finally collapsed onto the couch, her phone would buzz. How was today? Did the commute feel safe? Are they treating you well? She answered, even when she promised herself she wouldn't, because hearing from him felt like exhaling after holding her breath all day. He never crossed a line, never said anything suggestive, never implied she owed him something for the referral. But there was softness, a strange, steady warmth beneath every message, something she knew she shouldn't let herself crave. Chicago, Owen's evening. Owen stared at Lucy's message, her description of a small mistake she'd made at the clinic, and how embarrassed she felt. She wrote it lightly, joking even, but he could sense the insecurity underneath. He typed carefully, "Mistakes don't define capability. Trust me, I built half my breakthroughs on errors." He hovered before hitting send, then added, "And for what it's worth, I think they're lucky to have you." He watched the message deliver. He shouldn't be thinking about her this much. His own life was a labyrinth of meetings, negotiations, and relentless pressure. He didn't have space for something tender, something real. But when she talked about Ethan's giggles, or the weather in Detroit, or how the clinic smelled faintly of cinnamon from the coffee shop next door, he felt something loosen inside him. Something he thought grief had sealed shut. Detroit. A fracture appears. On Friday afternoon, Lucy stayed late to finish labeling samples. The clinic emptied around her. Cleaning staff swept the hallways. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, buzzing like anxious thoughts. When she finally stepped outside, the sun had already dipped low, turning Detroit's edges copper and blue. She walked faster, Ethan's daycare pickup time pressing at her. That's when she heard it, her name. At first she thought she imagined it, but then it came again. Lucy Nelson. She turned. A woman stood near the curb, mid-40s, sharp suit, a leather bag slung over her shoulder, completely out of place in this neighborhood. "Do I know you?" Lucy asked, wary. The woman smiled, too smooth, too practiced. "No, but I know your story." Lucy stiffened. "What story? Your connection to Owen Walker?" Ice shot down her spine. "I don't have a connection," she said. "Not the one you're implying." "Oh, come now," the woman said, stepping closer. "You think no one noticed the referral, or his protective behavior?" Lucy's heart hammered. "Who are you?" The woman pulled a business card from her bag. "Vanessa Hale, senior reporter, Chicago Daily Ledger." Lucy's stomach dropped. The reporter continued, tone light, almost amused. "We're following a story about Walker's personal life. He's notoriously private. So imagine our surprise when we find a single mother in Detroit who seems to have captured his attention." Lucy's pulse roared in her ears. She stepped back. "No, absolutely not. I'm not part of any story." Vanessa's eyes glinted. "You're already part of it. But you could shape the narrative. A quote from you about your friendship, about how he helped you, would go a long way." Lucy felt nauseous. "This is harassment," she whispered. "I have a child. Leave me alone." Vanessa shrugged. "Then I'll write it without your input," which rarely ends well for the subject. Lucy's breath trembled. This was why she didn't trust doors that opened too easily. The world wasn't kind, especially to women like her, especially when powerful men were involved. She turned and walked quickly down the block, her steps uneven. Vanessa called after her, "Think about it. We'll be in touch." When Lucy reached Ethan's daycare, her hands were shaking too much to sign the checkout sheet. Later that night, she didn't text Owen, didn't call, didn't say anything. She sat in the dark living room, Ethan asleep against her chest, her heartbeat thudding too loudly in the silence. She didn't want to drag him into this. She didn't want to be the woman the media used as bait. She didn't want her name tied to his in ways she couldn't control. And most of all, she didn't want him to regret ever helping her. But when her phone buzzed with home safe, her throat tightened painfully. She typed, "We need to talk. Not tonight. Tomorrow." He replied almost instantly, "Is something wrong?" She stared at the screen, then wrote, "Not yet, but it could be." She didn't sleep. Chicago. Owen doesn't wait. Lucy's message sat heavy in Owen's mind, long after he tried to focus on spreadsheets and research memos. Something wasn't right. He felt it. She wasn't vague unless she was afraid. At midnight, he made a decision. He called in a favor. A private investigator, not for anything invasive, but for protection. "Her name is Lucy Nelson," he said, voice tight. "Someone's bothering her. I need to know who, how close, and whether she's safe." The investigator asked, "Is she in danger?" Owen stared out the window at the city below, a glittering world of power and silence. "She will be," he said quietly, "if people think she matters to me." He hung up and pressed his fists against his eyes. This was the price of letting someone close. The world always found a way to twist it. But he wasn't letting anyone hurt her. Not Lucy. Not Ethan. Not again. Not like Emily. Detroit. The breaking point. Morning came gray and exhausted. Lucy strapped Ethan into his stroller and headed to a nearby park, needing open air to breathe before she talked to Owen. As she pushed the stroller through the quiet path, she felt a prickling sensation at her back, like someone watching. She glanced around. A man sat on a bench across the field, newspaper raised too high, too still, too focused. Her chest tightened. Another figure leaned casually by the swings, pretending to tie his shoe while looking directly at her. Her heartbeat spiked. She wasn't imagining this. This wasn't paranoia. Someone was tracking her, and it all traced back to one man in Chicago. She picked up Ethan, holding him close as fear surged, hot and suffocating. "No more," she whispered. "I can't let this touch him. I can't." She reached for her phone. Her hands trembled as she typed, "Owen, I can't do this. Not like this. Not with people watching me. We need distance before something gets ruined. Before someone gets hurt." She stared at the message a long time before hitting send. And when she did, her breath broke. Because letting him in had felt terrifying, but letting him go felt unbearable. Owen read the message 3 times before the meaning fully landed. We need distance before someone gets hurt. He stood in the middle of his penthouse phone, glowing in his hand, the Chicago skyline flickering like a heartbeat behind him. For a long moment, he didn't move, didn't breathe. Then the emotion hit sharp, cold, unwelcome. Fear. Not for himself, for her. Something must have happened. Something big for Lucy to pull away this abruptly. She wasn't impulsive. She wasn't dramatic. She wasn't someone who retreated unless she felt cornered. His fingers hovered over the screen. "Lucy, tell me what happened." No response. He paced the living room, each step echoing against marble floors. His thoughts spun tighter, darker. He checked his email. Nothing from the investigator yet. Too early. Too slow. He typed again. "Whatever you saw, whatever scared you, let me fix it, please." Still nothing. The silence pressed in on him, heavy and suffocating. He stared at the message bubbles like a man waiting for a pulse. This wasn't distance. This was fear shutting the door in panic. And he couldn't let her stand alone on the other side of that fear. Detroit. Lucy's apartment. Lucy turned her phone face down on the table so she wouldn't see his messages lighting up the room. She stood by the window with Ethan in her arms, watching the still street below. The men from the park weren't there anymore, not visibly. but she felt the threat lingering like the aftertaste of something toxic. This was what proximity to power looked like, not safety exposure. "Owen doesn't deserve this," she whispered, though her voice trembled. "And Ethan certainly doesn't." She pressed a kiss to her son's head, breathing in his soft warmth. He giggled, oblivious to the storm she was trying to outrun. Her phone buzzed again. She didn't move. If I let this become something real, she thought, the world will tear me apart. And it will tear him down for caring. She couldn't be the person who ruined his reputation or risked her son's safety because of a connection she barely understood. And yet the ache in her chest when she imagined losing his voice, his messages, his presence. It was too sharp to ignore. She swallowed hard and whispered to the empty room, "You don't get to want him. Wanting him is dangerous." But her heart didn't listen. Chicago lines, that break. Owen grabbed his coat without thinking and headed for the elevator. Rationality told him not to go to Detroit, not to show up without warning, not to make things worse. But rationality had never been part of this from the moment her message appeared on his screen weeks ago. He needed answers. He needed to see her face, hear her voice, understand what fear had sunk its claws into her. His car was already waiting when he reached the lobby. The driver startled at the urgency in his tone. "Detroit," Owen said. "Now." The man blinked. "Sir, that's a 4.5-hour drive. Then drive fast." Detroit. A knock that shouldn't happen. Lucy had just put Ethan down for his nap when someone knocked on her door. Her breath froze. It wasn't the landlord. "He never knocked," he hollered. And her neighbors barely made eye contact, let alone visited. Another knock, firmer this time. She moved quietly to the peephole, heart thrumming like a trapped bird. When she saw who it was, her breath left her in a single shattering exhale. Owen. He stood there in a dark coat, rain on his shoulders, even though the sky outside was clear. His expression wasn't angry or impatient. It was something harder to defend against, something like worry, stitched with determination. Lucy unlocked the door slowly. When she opened it, they just stared at each other. The air charged instantly, unspoken things crowding the small space between them. Finally, he said quietly, "You shouldn't face fear alone." Her throat tightened. She stepped aside, letting him in. Inside the apartment, Owen's gaze swept the cramped living room, the peeling paint, the sagging couch. Not with judgment, she could tell, but with a quiet, painful understanding of how hard she must have fought just to stay afloat. He turned to her slowly. "What happened?" Lucy wrapped her arms around herself, trying to form the words. "I told you. We need distance." "That's not an answer," he said gently. "That's fear speaking. Tell me why." She looked down at the floor. "A woman approached me outside the clinic." His jaw tightened. "Press?" She nodded. "She knew your name. She knew about the referral. She wanted a quote. She said she'd run the story anyway." Owen exhaled, anger flickering in his eyes. "She threatened to paint me as what, some billionaire with a secret mistress in Detroit?" he asked bitterly. Lucy's stomach knotted at the word mistress. "She threatened to write about Ethan," she whispered. Owen froze. "What?" Lucy's voice broke. "She said she'd twist me into whatever narrative she wanted. That my son was leverage in a story the world would swallow without blinking." Owen stepped forward, but she held up a hand. "That's why I said we need distance. Because this is the reality of your world. You may be used to it, but Ethan and I aren't." His voice lowered, roughened. "I would never let anyone harm your son. You can't promise that," she shot back. "You think you can, but you can't protect us from attention, from lies, from the way people talk." Her breath quivered. "I finally have a job, a chance. If people think I'm entangled with you, everything gets questioned." He swallowed, his voice strained. Are you really afraid of losing your job? Or afraid of what this could be between us? The room fell painfully silent. Lucy's eyes flickered toward him. Hurt, longing, confusion, all tangled together. I'm afraid, she whispered, of wanting something I shouldn't. Owen stepped closer until he was right in front of her. And what do you want, Lucy? She closed her eyes. His voice, low and unguarded, made her knees weaken. But she forced herself to step back. It doesn't matter what I want. What matters is keeping my son safe, keeping my life mine. Owen's expression cracked just slightly. I'm part of this now, he said, whether you like it or not. Her voice shook, and that's exactly why I'm pulling away. He stared at her like she'd just struck him. And in a way she had. A fracture and a confession. He moved to the small window overlooking the street, gathering himself before speaking again. You think distance will solve this? It won't. Maybe not, she said. But it's all I have. He turned, his eyes fierce with something painful and real. You don't push people away, Lucy. You've just learned to because everyone who should have stayed didn't. Her breath hitched. That's not fair. It's true, he said softly. And I'm not going anywhere. The words landed like an earthquake. Lucy's voice cracked. You can't say things like that. Because I'll believe you. And belief is a luxury I can't afford. Owen took a step closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. I'm not saying what you think I'm saying. She looked up sharply. He held her gaze quietly, steadily. I'm saying that I care, he said. More than I should, more than I planned to. But I'm here, Lucy. And I'm not stepping back because a reporter knocked on your door. Her pulse thundered. Owen, no, he said, taking another step. Let me finish. His voice was steady but threaded with emotion. I know what proximity to me costs. I've lived it for years, and I hate that it's touching you. But I will not let fear dictate how close I'm allowed to stand to the few people who matter to me. Her breath trembled. People who matter. The words hollowed her and filled her all at once. Owen, she whispered, almost pleading. He stopped, then close enough that she felt his warmth, but far enough that he wasn't touching her. Let me protect you, he said softly. Not because you need saving, God. I know you don't, but because no one ever protected you the way you deserved. Tears filled her eyes. She whispered, barely audible, I don't know how to let someone do that. He looked at her with something close to heartbreak. Then let me be the first. A moment that changes everything. For a long, breathless moment, neither moved. Then Ethan stirred in the other room, just a faint rustle. But it broke the spell. Lucy wiped her eyes quickly and stepped back. I need time, she whispered. To think, to breathe, to understand what this is becoming. Owen nodded, slow, reluctant. I can give you time, he said, but not distance. Her chest tightened. He moved toward the door, pausing as his hand touched the frame. I'll be in Detroit for a few days, he said quietly. Not to pressure you. Just in case you need me. She closed her eyes. Owen. He looked at her one last time, his voice barely above a breath. Don't shut me out, Lucy. Then he left. The door clicked softly behind him, and Lucy sank to the floor, hands trembling hard in freefall, because every part of her wanted to run after him. But the part that was a mother stayed rooted. Detroit woke to a sharp wind the next morning, the kind that sliced through layers and rattled loose window frames. Lucy stood by her kitchen counter, staring blankly at the kettle as it boiled. Steam curled like ghosts around her face. She hadn't slept. Not after Owen left. Not after the echo of his voice. I'm not going anywhere kept replaying in her mind. Not after the truth landed heavy in her chest. She wanted him. And it terrified her. Ethan tugged at her pajama pants, babbling impatiently. She forced herself to smile, lifting him into her arms. His warmth grounded her even as her thoughts spiraled. She needed clarity, distance, safety. But she also needed honesty, and she wasn't sure which direction honesty would pull her toward. Her phone buzzed on the counter. She stiffened. Not Owen. A notification from the news. Her stomach lurched. The headline blazed across the screen like a wound: biotech CEO Owen Walker linked to single mother in Detroit. Who is Lucy Nelson? Her heart plummeted. She clicked the article with shaking fingers. There she was, a photo of her leaving the clinic yesterday, Ethan in her arms. Another of her walking to the bus stop. Even one taken outside her apartment building. Her throat closed. They'd been watching her. Her name plastered in bold. Her history twisted into insinuations. Her resume dissected. Her motherhood framed as vulnerability, ripe for exploitation. Worst of all, sources claim she has a personal connection to Walker. She dropped the phone as though it burned. "Oh my God," she whispered, holding Ethan closer. "No, no, no." The walls pressed in around her. She slid to the floor, knees trembling, Ethan clinging to her shirt. She'd been right. Her instinct had been right all along. The world didn't see nuance. It saw angles, and she was now one of them. And this wasn't just a story. It was a target. Chicago. The call. Owen didn't expect. Owen had been sitting in his temporary Detroit hotel suite when his phone exploded with notifications. Emails, calls, voicemails. A few employees trying, failing to sound calm. He didn't need to click anything to know what had happened. He felt it in his bones. The moment he saw the headline, something primal and unforgiving surged through him. He didn't hesitate. He called her immediately. Lucy didn't pick up. He tried again, no answer. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing the polished floor until the room felt too small to contain him. His pulse thundered in his temples. Then, her name lit up the screen. He answered so fast, he almost dropped the phone. Lucy. Her voice was barely a whisper. Shaken. Tired. Something inside him twisted painfully. "They know where I live," she said. "They took pictures of me. Of Ethan." Owen closed his eyes, anger burning hot and precise. "I'm so sorry," he murmured. "I should have anticipated this. I should have—" "No," she cut in, voice cracking. "I told you this would happen. I told you what your world does to people like me." "Lucy, they're calling me your secret," she said breathlessly. "They're twisting everything. They're treating my son as leverage. And I can't." Her voice fractured. "I can't let him grow up in a story that starts with lies." He felt the panic under her words like a pulse. He softened his tone. "Tell me what you need. Anything." "I don't know," she whispered. I can't breathe. Let me come over." "No," she said immediately, almost violently. "Owen, if anyone sees you here, if they get another photograph, this will explode even bigger. Then let me take you somewhere private, somewhere safe." "Owen," she sounded exhausted, torn in two. "I can't make any decisions right now." He swallowed the frustration coiling in his chest. "Then just answer one thing," he said quietly. "Are you safe at this moment?" She hesitated. "Yes, I locked the doors. The curtains are down." "Good," he breathed, relief washing through him. "I'm nearby. If anything happens, if anyone comes back, you call me immediately." Silence. Not cold, just overwhelmed. "Owen," she whispered finally, "I never asked for any of this." He closed his eyes. "I know, and I'm going to fix it. I swear to you, Lucy, I won't let them destroy your life because of my name. But even as he said it, he knew the storm was already at her door. Detroit decisions, made of fear and hope. Lucy paced the living room, Ethan perched on her hip, clutching his stuffed elephant. Reporters hadn't shown up outside yet, but she could feel them on the horizon like thunder rolling closer. Every instinct screamed at her to hide, to run, to disappear before the world swallowed her whole. But another instinct, quieter, deeper, kept whispering, "You're not alone this time." She didn't want to rely on that whisper, didn't trust it, didn't trust herself with it. Her thoughts spiraled faster when there was another knock at her door. Her breath stopped. She froze, clutching Ethan tightly. "Lucy," a voice called. "It's just me, Mrs. Jacobs, her elderly neighbor." Relief made her knees weak. Lucy opened the door a sliver. The old woman held a folded newspaper and a worried frown. "I thought you should see this before others do," Mrs. Jacobs said. "And if you need anything, I'm right next door." Lucy's eyes burned. Kindness hurt more than cruelty sometimes. "Thank you," she whispered. Mrs. Jacobs squeezed her hand before shuffling back down the hall. Lucy shut the door and leaned against it. She didn't read the paper. She didn't need to. She could feel the articles like fingerprints on her skin. Chicago. A line crossed. Owen's phone rang with the investigator's number. He answered instantly. "Tell me." "We tracked the source who leaked her identity," the investigator said. "It wasn't a random reporter. Someone inside biotech tipped them off." Owen went still. "Who?" "We're narrowing it down. But it wasn't anyone low level. They had access to your referrals." Cold anger bled into Owen's voice. "Find them." "There's something else," the investigator added. "Based on security footage, it looks like someone's been following her for days." Owen's pulse cracked hot in his veins. Following her. Yes. Same two individuals. Same van. Owen's jaw locked. "Get surveillance on her building. And send me everything you've got." "Already on it." When the call ended, Owen stared out the window, fists curling. Someone was using Lucy to get to him, to rattle him, to test how far he'd bend before breaking. They had chosen the wrong leverage, because for the first time in years, Owen felt something he hadn't felt since Emily died. Protectiveness that bordered on savage. The conversation they can't escape. That evening, Lucy put Ethan to bed early. The apartment was quiet enough that she could hear her own heartbeat. She stared at her phone for a long time before finally calling Owen. He answered on the first ring. She didn't know how to begin, so she said the only thing she was certain of. "I don't want to be a headline." "You won't be," he said, calm but burning underneath. "Not for long. I don't want my son in the middle of this. He shouldn't be. And he won't be." Silence pulsed softly between them. "Owen, I don't know if I can handle your world." His exhale was pained. "I don't expect you to," he said. "You're not supposed to handle it alone." She sat on the couch, pulling her knees up. "I'm scared," she whispered. "I know," he said quietly. "I am too." Her breath faltered. "You're scared?" "Yes," he answered, voice rough. "Because I don't want this to push you away. Because for the first time in a long time, someone matters to me. You matter. Ethan matters." Her eyes stung. "Owen, if we step into this, whatever this is, it won't be simple." "I don't want simple," he said. "I want honest. But honest means dangerous." "Then let it be dangerous," he replied gently. "But don't let it be distance." She closed her eyes, tears slipping free. "I don't know how to choose both safety and you." The line went quiet. Then his voice dropped to a whisper. "Then choose what scares you a little less." Her breath trembled. "And if If it's you that scares me less, then I'll meet you there, he said. At your pace, your terms. She pressed a hand to her heart. Just don't make promises you can't keep. His answer came without hesitation. I only make one kind of promise, Lucy, the kind I intend to carry to the end. Her chest tightened painfully. Tomorrow, she whispered. Let's talk tomorrow. I'll be here, he said. In Detroit, until you're ready. When she hung up, the storm outside rattled the window pane. But for the first time all day, she didn't feel alone inside it. Detroit was strangely quiet the next morning. Too quiet for a city that usually hummed even before dawn. Lucy stood by her living room window, holding a mug she never drank from. Her eyes scanned the street below, as if danger might materialize out of the rising mist. She wasn't paranoid, not after yesterday. She could still feel the weight of the article clawing at her skin, still hear Vanessa's voice curling around her fears, still taste the bitterness of being reduced to a caricature by people who didn't know her name until they put it in headlines. Her phone buzzed against the table. Owen. She didn't answer immediately. She waited, counted 2 breaths, 3, trying to keep the panic from spilling over into something she couldn't control. When she finally picked up, she forced her voice steady. Hi, he exhaled softly, a mixture of relief and restraint. I've got an update. Her stomach tightened. What kind? The men following you. They weren't reporters. Lucy's breath hitched. Who were they? We're still identifying their employer, he said carefully. But they're not affiliated with the newspaper. They were trained. They knew how to avoid being noticed. Lucy's blood chilled. So someone hired people to watch me. Yes. The fear in her chest sharpened into something colder. And you think it's because of you? He didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was low and edged in something like fury. I think someone is trying to use you to pressure me, or provoke me, or punish me. Lucy pressed a hand to the window frame to steady herself. So I'm... Collateral, no. His voice sharpened. You are the line they crossed, and I'm going to find out who did it. She felt dizzy. Ethan cooed from behind her, tugging at a stuffed elephant, oblivious. Innocent. Lucy swallowed hard. Owen, this is too much. Too dangerous. Which is why I need to see you, he said, gentler now. Not to complicate things. To protect you. In person. She hesitated, fear and longing pulling in opposite directions. Where she whispered. Somewhere safe, he said. Just tell me you'll meet me halfway. Her silence stretched, long enough that she could hear her own heartbeat. Finally, I'll think about it, she said. She didn't hang up yet. Neither did he. Then Ethan's small whimper broke the moment. I have to go, she murmured. Lucy. Please, she whispered. Not now. She ended the call with shaking fingers. Detroit clinic pressure in bright light. Lucy went to work, forcing herself through motions that felt jagged at the edges. The clinic's bustling hallways, the whirl of lab equipment, the comforting hum of routine, all of it felt unnervingly normal after yesterday's chaos. But whispers followed her like echoes. They weren't malicious, not really, just curious. And curiosity could crush a person faster than ridicule. Is that her? The one from the article? She doesn't seem the type. Why would someone like him? Lucy kept her eyes on her clipboard, lips pressed into a thin line, hands steady only because she willed them to be. Dr. Clark paused beside her at one point, gaze soft and understanding. I've seen the news, she said quietly. Take whatever time you need. We're here for you. Lucy nodded mutely. Gratitude lodged painfully in her throat. But time wasn't the issue. Exposure was. Every hour at the clinic felt like being under a microscope, like the world was dissecting her through glass. By the end of her shift, her nerves trembled with exhaustion. Detroit. A decision made in stillness. After putting Ethan to bed, Lucy curled on the couch, hugging her knees. The lamp glowed dimly beside her shadows, softening the outlines of her small apartment. Her world had never been big, but it had been hers. Now even that felt like it might crumble if she made one wrong move. Her phone buzzed. A message from Owen. "I'm not asking you to trust my world. Just trust me. Let me meet you somewhere public, somewhere neutral." Lucy closed her eyes. He wasn't pressuring her. He wasn't demanding anything. He was offering steadiness in a life that rarely gave her that. She typed before fear could interfere, where he replied quickly, "Riverfront Park. Tomorrow morning. Crowded enough to be safe. Quiet enough for us to talk." She stared at the message, exhaling shakily. She typed, "Okay." And for the first time in days, her chest loosened just slightly. The meeting. The next morning, Lucy bundled Ethan into a stroller and walked to the riverfront. The air was crisp, the sky streaked with early sunlight. Joggers passed, cyclists whirred by. A man with a fishing rod set up by the railing. Normal, safe, unremarkable, until she saw him. Owen stood by the water coat, dark against the pale morning, hands in his pockets, gaze fixed somewhere distant. When he turned and saw her, something softened instantly in his expression. Not relief. Something deeper. Something he didn't let many people see. Lucy approached slowly. "Owen." "Lucy." His eyes flicked briefly to the stroller, then back to her with quiet reassurance. They stood a foot apart, close enough to feel the warmth of each other's presence, far enough to avoid the gravity pulling them closer. "You shouldn't have come," she whispered. "I had to," he said. "You know that." She swallowed. "Yesterday was a lot." "I know. And the article, I'll handle it," he said, voice firm. "The newspaper will retract it. The reporter is already under review." She blinked. What Owen's expression turned cold, not toward her, but toward the situation. "My legal team sent them the surveillance footage of their own freelancer stalking you," he said. "They're scrambling." Lucy stared at him, stunned. How did you even get that?" "Because your safety isn't negotiable," he murmured. The words hit hard. Too hard. "Owen, you can't turn my life into an operation." He stepped closer just an inch. "I'm not strategizing you. I'm protecting you." She shook her head, torn. "That's the problem. I don't want my life to change because you decided to care." His jaw clenched faintly, as though holding back words that wanted to break free. "It changed the night you texted me," he said softly. "Not because I cared, but because you let me in." Her breath stuttered. She looked away at the water, the sunlight flickering gold. "Owen, I'm not built for your world. I don't know how to navigate it. I don't want to lose myself inside it." He moved closer again, careful, deliberate. "Then don't navigate it," he murmured. "Let me be the one who navigates. You just stand beside me." She closed her eyes. "Owen, don't make this sound easy." "It's not," he said. "It's messy. It's dangerous. It's complicated. But it's real. And I haven't had something real in a long time." Silence thickened between them. He drew a breath. "Lucy, do you want me to walk away?" Her eyes opened slowly. "No," she whispered. It slipped out like a truth she couldn't hide. Something shifted in his expression. Relief, tenderness, something that made her heart throb painfully. "But I don't know how to do this," she added. "You don't have to," he said. "We'll figure it out." He reached toward the stroller, slowly giving her time to object. She didn't. Ethan looked up at him with wide, curious eyes, then broke into a smile that made Owen's breath catch. He touched Ethan's tiny hand, and something raw flickered across his face. Pain and hope intertwined. When he straightened, his voice was quieter. "I won't let anyone threaten him," he said. "Or you." Lucy looked at him, heart aching. "I want to believe that," she whispered. "Then let me give you reasons." Owen held her gaze earnest and unwavering. "I'm staying in Detroit until this is handled," he said. "I don't care how complicated it becomes." Her pulse stumbled. "Owen." "No distance," he murmured. "Not anymore." She didn't step back this time. Instead, she let out a small, broken breath and whispered, "Okay." The word wasn't loud, but it was brave, and he heard every ounce of meaning in it. For a moment, the world around them faded, leaving only the river, the breeze, and a fragile thread of trust pulling them closer. And though nothing was truly safe yet, something inside Lucy finally stopped running.